Hey guys, welcome back to the Modern Catholic Life podcast. I'm your host, Dallas, and we are joined by a very special guest today, Blake Smith. The topic for today is capturing and engaging young adults. We both feel like this is an area that the church is not tapping into enough, or maybe just not totally in the best ways. But Blake has done some things that will address that and are starting to fix that problem. Before we get into what exactly you and your young adults ministry does, Blake, can you share with us a little bit about your background, kind of your upbringing, what you did in high school? We're both young dudes, so kind of what that experience is like going through school and then going through college and that atmosphere. Can you share a little bit about that?
Sure, yeah. So as you said, I'm Blake Smith. I'm 25 years old, so I graduated high school 7 years ago, maybe somewhere around there. So high school was interesting because I don't know. I was involved as a Catholic. We started confirmation classes at freshman year, so that's 2012, somewhere around there. Got confirmed after my sophomore year, and so I spent 2 years of high school as a confirmed Catholic. Our confirmation and everything was good. It was solid, but when you're in high school, it's a little difficult to really connect to the older crowd. It's hard when you have your sports and stuff like that, that are your priority, your classes, everything like that. So although I was involved, I wouldn't say that church was much of a priority for me. I was at our youth events often enough. I was at mass a little bit less. That's not necessarily my parents' fault. We had a lot of sports stuff going on, so we were out of town a lot. And so it was like, try to make a mass here. Yeah, there was just a lot going on as a high schooler. So I went to LTLC, and that was, I think, sophomore going into junior year, or freshman going into sophomore year.
For those who don't know, what is LTLC?
A Life Team Leadership Conference. So Life Team puts on this conference. I'm assuming they still do it. I think they do. Every year. I think it's so the way our church had it, we had limited spots we could go. So our youth director would handpick a handful of people who they saw leadership opportunity or leadership qualities in, and would invite them to go with them to retreat, because we only had, like I said, limited spots. And so so we did that whole thing, and it was wonderful, and it gave me this taste for Christ, which I talked on Yes Catholic about. But it was this hunger to experience God, in a more I guess obvious way.
Yeah.
And it kind of started both this hunger and desire, but also a little bit of, I don't know if I got into this that much on the last on Yes Catholic, but it kind of started also a little bit of a resentment, because I wanted to experience what I was seeing other people experience. And I didn't have that for the longest time. And so I go through college, and it's like, or not college, sorry, high school, graduate high school. I'm involved enough, but not really all that involved. And then I get into college, and this is where I shout out Father, oh my gosh, my brain, Father Tino. Yep. He was the chaplain at the time for Lamar University's Catholic Student Center, the Newman Catholic Student Center. So I go and visit, like, one of my first days on campus, first semester. I'm all gung ho, like, I'm gonna, go to church. I'm gonna make sure I stay in my faith. Everyone leaves during college and all that kind of stuff. It's not gonna be me. But at the time, I was working for Lamar's football team, so that I was working, and I'm not exaggerating, like 60-hour weeks, and on top of full-time student. So I go in, I have this conversation with Father. We talk about work, sports, all that kind of stuff. I leave. I don't come back for 3 years. Just I might have stopped by and picked up a free lunch once, but like, it was a go in, grab it, go and get out. So that was it. And during that time, man, I just kind of found myself purposely trying to sleep through mass. I had no one pushing me to go to mass. All my friends from like my close friends that were Catholic that I graduated with had either gone to church elsewhere. They had gone and done, or not church, school elsewhere. They went and did other things. Everyone got busy, life changed. And so my support system, my Catholic support system, was kind of gone for the time being. And
I
feel
think
free to
that
fast
says
forward me.
something. Yeah, I think that says something about your kind of mindset going into it though. You said that when you were leaving to go to college, like you were not going to be another one who just kind of stopped going to church, lost their faith. You were, intentional, at least you wanted to stay involved, so your heart was in the right place. But it's always funny how those things actually play out compared to what our idea of how it's going to play out is. Like when I was in
Yeah.
high school, you talked about being confirmed as a sophomore. I went through, I think my junior year, I started late. My junior year, I went through confirmation classes, and for whatever, I went through the whole thing. And for
Okay.
whatever reason, the Sunday mass where I was going to be confirmed, to this day, I can't tell you why, me and my family didn't go. And so like years later, I want to say now I was 2010, 2011, I think. And then it wasn't until 2017 or 18 where I actually got confirmed and I had to go through RCRA. So
Wow.
just interesting how kind of both of us were in it and then out of it and then got a
Yeah.
desire to get back into it again.
Absolutely, man. Um, it's crazy. It's weird how that kind of goes, and it's beautiful to me that path that we often desire to have, and the path that we end up taking, and the path that the path we desire, the path that we take, they're very different oftentimes. And the cool part is, a lot of people say like, what's meant to be is meant to be. I call that, that's bull. That's baloney.
I love
It's
that.
yeah, it's just what it is Christ seeing you detour off your path, and so he lays new stones, a new path to try to get you back. And so me personally, I made God work, man. I really did. Dude was laying paths left and right, but it's I don't know, it's a beautiful thing. And so I congrats on coming back.
Thanks, man.
You said 2018, right?
Yeah.
2018, that was, I think, when my girlfriend came back. She grew up Catholic, got up to first communion, and then they just kind of stopped going through like CCD and stuff.
Yeah.
And so when we started dating, that's a whole nother story. But long story short, when we started dating, she was non-denominational, going to the same church that we'll get to that part of the story in a minute. But yeah, going to the same church that I had gotten kind of involved with over there. That's not how we met, but anyway, that's a whole different story again.
Sure.
But she ended up coming back after like we started dating. I started just like going to church with her, and then we'd go to mass. And she just kind of fell back in love with it. So
that's awesome, man. Like just having that, you said it earlier, like a Catholic support system. And even though she is just one person at that point, like having another person in your life to kind of bounce those thoughts, those feelings, those experiences off of or with, that's awesome. And congratulations to you guys. And, I guess as Catholics would say, welcome back home. So
absolutely.
Yeah. But
absolutely.
So I do want to ask a little bit about your girlfriend later on, but
sure.
Going back to kind of that transition to college, listening to a podcast you did with Yes Catholic, you shared a story about your dear friend named Alex.
Yes, Alex.
And yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, no, that's fine. I'm going to backtrack a little bit because it's important to kind of know where I was at that point. So, so college, I'm about 2.5, 3 years in. Wait, is that right? 15th. Yeah, 2.5, 3 years in. That's good enough of a timeline. And I am still working for Lamar's football team. I had just gotten out of a long-term 7.5-year relationship. So we had started dating in high school and broke up a few years into college. And so I started trying to, ease my way back into church, but trying to refocus on that. At the same time, I was freshly 21. A lot of my friends were freshly 21. So we also like kind of just, did the 21-year-old thing, we go, we hang out. The funny thing is we weren't even going out very often. I don't know how many times we were sitting in like the garage or at a buddy's house, just hanging out, yelling stupid stories. So but
when you're 21, you don't need much.
You really don't.
You'll make a good time wherever you are.
Exactly. And so, yeah, man, but it became a problem because I was drinking every day. And I wouldn't say necessarily to drown any sorrows or anything like that, but it became all we wanted to do, which obviously is a problem. But so a few different things are going to kind of interwork. I don't think I threw in as many names last time. I'm going to give people names this time just so it didn't get as confusing.
Yeah.
And I don't know, I know these people don't care as much. So so I have my little friend group. We're hanging out. We're doing a good time, having a good time. They're great people. Nothing against them. We were all just kind of broken in our own ways and kind of fueling these fires that didn't need to be fueled. At the same time, I have my buddy Josh. He was still real involved at this non-denominational church. And they had a young adult ministry and it was killing it. And so I was like, you know what? Like he kept inviting me. I was like, you know what? Fine. I'll go. I have, there's no young adult presence at my church, so might as well. At this point, I'm not involved at the Catholic Student Center at all either. So I was like, at least I'll have something, see what it's about. Whatever. So I get kind of hanging out over there and I don't know, man. It's just the people were so inviting. Their desire for Christ, the way they would pray for each other and with each other, and like regardless of differences in theology and whatever, like they were doing something very right and beautiful. And I started out super uncomfortable and stuff. I couldn't stand praise and worship. I was like, this is weird and awkward. By the end of it, man, like I was like, you know what? Holy Spirit, let's go. I mean, it only took a few months to kind of break me open. I still wouldn't pray in front of anyone, but Christ was obviously pulling, like the Holy Spirit was trying to move. There was a love there that I was experiencing, but not understanding. And that was, the Holy Spirit kind of tugging at my heart, just trying to be like, hey, you need something like this. And so that's group number 2. So we got group number 1, which was my friends I was hanging out with almost every day. Group 2, which was Josh. And that's where I met my friends, Alex and Mariah. Alex being, I met her later in the summer and all that kind of fun stuff. And then there's group number 3. So I was, at the time, during the summers, I would work building fences for a guy who I went to church with. And his daughter was dating a friend of mine I had graduated with, have you ever heard of an Acts retreat?
Just from your conversation on the Yes Catholic podcast.
Okay, wonderful. Well, Acts retreats are awesome. Are you still in college?
No, I'm not.
Okay, cool. Well, then you can't go to college Acts, but anyway, doesn't matter. We'll talk about that later.
Okay.
If you ever get a chance to experience an Acts retreat, it's awesome. It really is incredible. But my university, at least at the time, I don't know if that's still true, but I think it is the only university to host a college Acts retreat. And Acts is pretty big, and it started in San Antonio. It's pretty large in San Antonio and I think parts of Louisiana. So it's got a decent sized presence, but we've got, like this retreat that, like 40 young adults are retreatants and 40, young adults are the people putting on the retreat. And so my buddy's trying to convince me to go. I've got my boss's daughter, his name's Carly. My buddy who I graduated with, whose name is Avery. And then I've got Carly's boyfriend, who's Avery's brother, Zach. See, all these different ties, It gets confusing. But But and they're all trying to convince me to go to this retreat. And I'm like, man, I don't know. I don't think I'm ready for that. It's a lot. It's intense. You're not allowed to know what's going on unless you go on the retreat. So I'm like, this is just a little weird and creepy. Not for me. But they keep trying to break me down. And so moving throughout the summer, I'm balancing this balancing act of going to these young adults things with Josh and his friends at this non-denominational church. I got my buddies I'm hanging out with at some point almost every day, and I'm drinking and all that kind of stuff. And then I've got, this other group who's trying to pull me back into the church and get me involved, get me to go to this retreat and all that kind of stuff. And I'm like, I'm trying to balance all three of these things. And so as time goes on, I meet more friends in that Catholic world, some of their friends, and they kind of pull me deeper into this. And eventually I'm like, you know what? Fine. I'll attempt to, I'll sign up for the Acts retreat. So I sign up, or I go to turn in my papers, my application, and I show up at the Catholic Student Center, and it looks like it's closed. So I knock on the door, and Father Tino opens the door. And this was kind of my last, I don't know, once I turn in my application, I don't have to go still. I can still get out of the retreat if I want to, but I was like, I'll at least turn in the application, see if I get selected. The moment I show up, I can't guarantee he remembered my name, but he remembered me. And once I handed my application, at least he had seen my name, and he called me by name though. And he asked me about work. And granted, at this point, it had been 3 years since I had seen and talked to the guy. So 3 years, he's met all these other students, made relationships with all these other students, and he still remembered me. And that was just kind of like a sign for me that you're going to get chosen to be on this retreat, and you're going to go. You can't say no. And, eventually I got chosen. I went to the retreat, and I'll get into that in a minute, but
literally God calling you by name.
Yeah. Absolutely. And it was, I don't know, it was a really cool experience at that moment. And granted, in hindsight, I saw that and I was like, it made sense to sign. Remember me saying that I had some resentment to God. I wanted that big experience. Still didn't see that as one of those experiences. So, there was still that little chip on my shoulder, but regardless, so Alex, at this time though, I'm getting involved in this church, and I meet Alex. I went with Josh to meet up with some of his friends from church, I think we went to Chick-fil-A. Yeah. And that's where I officially met Alex and Mariah. And we hit it off, pretty quickly. I'm a funny girl, awesome. Both of them are hilarious. After I met them, I think a week later, I had, about a week later, maybe, Josh was going to come by, and he brought her by as well. And we were all hanging out. So from that point on, I had seen Alex almost every day for about 2 or 3 weeks. And that was leading up into the retreat. At this point, I had gotten the call, going on the retreat, made friends with some people that were on the retreat team, but I didn't know anyone going on the retreat. So I'm like, we're going to see what happens. And she knows nothing about the retreat, but in preparation, she went and got me this little gift basket, this little care package for, so we were at this point, we were best friends, not super close. So I go on retreat, have an incredible time, great experience. I can't talk a lot about it because it's just the nature of the retreat, but I made great friends, and it created this beautiful community and this desire to dive deeper into that, which is cool. But it was right out. Yeah. So that she was the first person to come see me right after, I got home, I went and talked to my parents for a bit, took a quick nap, and then we all went and hung out, me, Alex, Josh, all of them. And so that happens. We're doing, they'll hang out and whatever. At that point, Alex and I had started hanging out just the two of us, just me, or like we were best friends.
Yep.
And we hung out every day for about 2 weeks, and then all this time I'm joining Knights Columbus. I'm diving in to church as much as I can, and then they're about 2 weeks in. I'm in the school year. I'm into the new semester. And that's when we kind of like, she moved for a little bit, like not far, but a little further. We didn't see each other for about 2 or 3 weeks. And then out of the blue, she hits me up and says, "Hey, let's, I'm getting some friends together. Let's all go hang out, have dinner, and, do our thing, whatever, just hang out." And so I was like, sure, cool, whatever. I went by, she was staying at a friend's house who was nearby. I went, picked her up. We went to a Texas Roadhouse. We hung out there, just chilling. It was a great time. Afterwards, I went to go take her home, and we just went driving around and just listened to music and stuff. And it was just this awesome experience where we just got to have like just this long talk, listening to music, driving around for like 2 hours before I dropped her off. And that's when things kind of got weird. So first of all, I drop her off, I get home, she texts me and is like, "Bro, I totally left my keys in your car. I'm so sorry. Can you bring it back?" And I had just gotten into it. I was like, "Yeah, all right, I'll come back." So I get up, I get dressed, I go, drive back over there, let her know I'm here. She comes down, grabs the keys, and then she says, like, she didn't say, that was the weird part. She's like, "Thank you." And then she just gives me this hug, but it was weird because this hug was like, there was something weird and different about it. Like, like you could feel something was different. And I remember like very vividly, like the way she like hugged me, gave me like, she like the bear hug style. So like gave me a squeeze and then like grabbed my hand as she walked away, and she walked up the stairs. And it was strange because it was like, it felt like a goodbye. Like we both knew something was weird and different about it. And so a few days later, that was on a Thursday, I believe. Somewhere around there. A few days later, it's Sunday. I had been out the night before with my Catholic friends who were bowling, and then celebrating one of my friends' birthdays. And then I think received a message from her that night, and that was the last message I had received from her. The next day, I got done with 5 o'clock mass at the Catholic Student Center. I got a phone call from a buddy and was like, "Hey, dude, I'm so sorry. Alex got in a wreck. She didn't make it." And it's weird because you don't really expect people that young to go. I mean, everyone's like, "Man, we all have our time," and that's fine. Like, I mean, but it doesn't make it feel any better.
Right. Man. And
then people try to tell you the whole like, it's all part of God's plan, and it's like, I don't know. So yeah, it was just a really difficult situation, and I don't know. It kind of spiraled me for a bit, but I can stop there because for a second and let you. I didn't know if you had something you wanted to.
Yeah, there are a few things, man. Just kind of going back to earlier on, you talked about balancing your friend group that was trying to get you back into church, the friend group who you were doing things that, you're hanging out, drinking and stuff. Like, I think when a lot of young people go away, and I've been kind of out of it, I'm 27 now, so I'm out of that a little bit. But like, when young people go away to school, I think they have this idea that, well, I'm young, I'm only young once, I'm going to go have fun, I'm going to go hang. It's just a part of that part of life.
Yeah.
But you felt the tension between the two groups, and you said like you're trying to balance. And then I remember hearing you say before, like you realized I can't really balance. It's like I've got to pick. And so that type of, I really think it's spiritual warfare. And again, not to say that there's anything wrong with the dudes you're hanging out with. I've been there too. Then
Yeah, like I said, they're all good people. We were all going through our own thing. We
Yeah.
just weren't helping each other. We were
Yeah.
hurting each other in the process.
Yeah. And then you experience this moment where your friend Josh, like, what an awesome thing. And kudos to him for continuing to pester you about going to the young adults
Yeah.
event. Like, through all of your no's that you gave him, he still kept asking you. Finally, you said yes. Like, how important is it for young people to have people like that around them who will bother them until they say yes?
Yeah, it's important, and huge kudos to him, because like, I don't know, he's a powerhouse when it comes to like, he's strong in his faith. He knows what, he desires, and his desire is to grow closer to God. And it was a huge influence on me.
Yeah, that's awesome. Go ahead.
No, you're good.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So then you experience, this really tragic event and with Alex. And man, when I first heard that, I was just walking around, I was working, and it stopped me in my tracks. And because I could hear it in your voice, and I could only imagine, the emotion that goes into that you felt, that her family must have felt. And, I've said a few prayers for you guys. I don't know how long ago that was, but I know those things don't really go away.
Yeah, they don't. It was 2018.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was 2018.
Yeah. And I'm sorry to hear that again. But so tell us about that experience. I think a lot of people, not just young, but older too, will go through tragic events, and the response is not always, it's hard to tell someone how to grieve, but the response isn't always, conducive to progress. So
I agree.
talk about that a little bit.
Yeah. So, okay. First of all, you're right. You can't tell someone how to grieve, because grieving looks different for everyone. There's everyone's relationship with another person is different, and the experiences that you share with that person is going to impact the way you grieve. The way that you process emotion is going to be like impact the way you grieve, and your relationship with God's going to impact the way you grieve. And so, for me, so what I did was about the probably the most healthy like decision I've ever made when it comes to this kind of stuff, if I'm being honest, is I remember finding out about it, and obviously I was broken. Like the night of, I told my friends, everyone came over, they just sat with me. The next day I had classes on Monday. I didn't go to any of them. I just sat at Lamar at the Catholic Student Center, and I hung out in there with these guys and the ladies that I met on retreat. That all these people who had poured into me on retreat were there, and they were just willing. Like, I walked in, I didn't say much to too many people. I walked straight to the chapel. I spent about 2 hours in there just crying. Which is, I mean, I don't know. To me, that was the most responsible decision I had made that summer.
Sure.
Was just spending the very first moment I got on campus, I went straight to the chapel, and I just went there by myself, and I bawled. And throughout that whole process, people were sitting there, like coming up to me, asking me how I'm doing. Can I pray with you? Invite me to adoration, invite me to just hang out, even if they knew I was going to say no, because like I wasn't up for it. They were concerned about my well-being and willing to talk me through it. The thing though that I had figured out really quickly, and it was kind of like it's weird. Sometimes if you just kind of allow yourself to be broken and bleed in front of Christ, your prayer, like you're in a vulnerable position. So I find that Christ will often lead you to pray the way you should in that moment. And so I was sitting there and I'm bawling, and I'm like, honestly, like pretty ticked off, to say the least. And I'm hurt and upset. And I remember just sitting there and praying prayer that kind of came out of nowhere. It was just like, God, like, I'm mad and I'm angry and I don't understand whatsoever. But all I ask is that you take this moment and help me heal and help her family heal, and, like, guide her to heaven. And, just a really raw, emotional, like, just prayer that was just kind of like, dude, I'm mad at you, and that's okay.
Yeah.
And, like, all I ask is that you sit here with me in my own pain, and I did that right in front of the altar, and it was a weird kind of, like, I don't know, experience of just being vulnerable with Christ and just letting him see the wounds that he already knows it's there. But, like, I don't know, I feel like in prayer we oftentimes try to sugarcoat things, or, like, when you're grieving, for instance, a lot of people are like, it was part of God's plan, it's part of, and it's like, sure, maybe, whatever. But that's not a bad way to look at it necessarily, but I think we have to be real with the way that we're hurting. Like, Christ literally grieved, like, it's in scripture. He hurt, he suffered. I mean, he felt everything that we feel. So, like, why try to, like, cover that up, And on the verse side, like, it's okay to be upset. Don't allow that anger, though, to be resentment. Like, I get mad at family members. I say all the time, but you get irritated with people. You've been mad at somebody before you love. You still love them, Sometimes people hurt you, and sometimes that hurt is, like, it's not because they want to hurt you. It's because it's something you needed to hear. It was something that needed to happen. It's something that was out of their control. And sometimes they're not the one actually doing it. It's just life. Life has suffering, and that's just a part of it. It's, without suffering, there's no beauty. So I don't know. It's just, and we can't appreciate that. I guess that's not true. There is beauty without suffering, but you can't appreciate the beauty without suffering.
Yeah.
And so, I don't know.
So through all of this, so all of this going on, like, you're starting to get drawn back into the faith after this experience with going to the chapel, spending time in prayer, just kind of drawing it back to the earlier experiences of the friend group who is non-Catholic. So many young people, when they go away to school, who were raised Catholic at home, or maybe culturally Catholic, they go away and they do have an experience that similar to one that you had, where you're around these people who love Christ, but they're different. They're part of a different Christian tradition. Mm-hmm. What made you go back to the Catholic faith? Why not go to the other different traditions?
One thing that could really pull me back, it really came down to just one thing. And at some point in my life, and I can't pinpoint when, I became convinced that the Eucharist is the body, blood, soul, and divinity of Christ. And I was convinced that that's the only place I was going to find it, was the Catholic Church. And so regardless of anything else, I couldn't leave that, if that makes sense. It was 100% that.
That's awesome.
The only thing it was the only thing keeping me tied.
Thanks again for tuning into the Modern Catholic Life podcast. For more content sharing the truth, beauty, and goodness of the Catholic faith, you can follow, like, and subscribe to our Instagram, YouTube, Spotify, and Facebook by searching @Modern Catholic Life. We'll see you next time.